The USS George H.W. Bush has arrived in its area of responsibility in the Middle East, making it the third US aircraft carrier in the region amid growing signs that the very fragile US-Iran ceasefire may collapse. Notably, the Bush travelled to the region by sailing south of Africa, avoiding the Red Sea, signalling the US is concerned the Houthis in Yemen could close the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, which connects the Red Sea to the Gulf of Aden. The other aircraft carriers in the region, the USS Abraham Lincoln and USS Gerald Ford, have been operating in the region where US warships are enforcing a blockade on Iranian ports. Since the ceasefire between the US and Iran, both sides have targeted ships in the region, accusing the other of not abiding by the ceasefire terms. The US has also been sending transporters to the region to resupply its ships and bases in what is looking like preparations for further escalation. A former senior UK civil servant who actually ran the Brexit department has publicly said Britain should consider rejoining the EU, arguing that Brexit has failed to deliver its promises. Philip Rycroft, who was permanent secretary at the Department for Exiting the European Union from 2017 to 2019, argued there was an eminent logic to re-entering the bloc. Writing in the Times, Rycroft said that none of the heady promises of the various Leave campaigns had been met. No one can credibly claim that we have marched to the sunny uplands of sustained economic growth as a consequence of Brexit. New polling shows that 53% of Britons were in favour of rejoining the EU, while only 29% were content with the relationship as it is now. 10 years since the Brexit referendum vote, taking back control has not led to the utopia that was promised, and Brexiters blame successive governments for not taking the opportunities of being outside the EU. Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova has said Moscow will continue supplying Cuba amid the US blockade squeezing the island. The United States, under President Donald Trump, has blocked almost all fuel tankers from entering Cuba since February 2026, which has led to severe shortages, widespread power outages, and depleted food supplies across the island. Cuba has faced nationwide blackouts since Venezuela, at one point the island's main oil supplier, stopped crude shipments under pressure from Washington. US President Donald Trump has signaled that he intends to take Cuba one way or another and threaten tariffs against countries exporting crude to the island. However, last month, after a Russian oil tanker bypassed the US blockade, Trump told reporters that Washington doesn't mind having somebody get a boatload into the island, as they need to survive. According to Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel, the island relies on imports for between 40 to 60% of the 7 million tons of fossil fuels it needs per year. Díaz-Canel confirmed that talks with the US were ongoing, but stressed that Cuba would reject any demands pertaining to its political system. The US blockade is intended to pressure Cuba into accepting US demands on economic liberalization and political freedoms, as part of the White House's broader campaign to expand US influence across the Western Hemisphere.